we are Fragmentin. We are an artist collective. We founded 6 years ago in 2014. We are Marc Dubois, David Colombini, and Laura Perneux. And today we're going to present our work. That's one of our pieces behind me. We're going to present today. Our work questions the impact on digital technology on everyday life by exploring how this technology, how the disposition this technology have towards control and opacity. We talk a lot about different themes that will instruct you today. So we talk about climate change, global warming, and different impact technology have on society. I will show you a few of our inspiration. So this is us, but you can also see us on Zoom. So here's a few books we just show you because it's kind of reference we have for works, and also different vision of technology and nature. Maybe we can also discuss that later. So, for example, we have the New Dark Age. Maybe you know about James Bridle. We really like his work, and he has a rather negative vision about technology, how it controls the society. Sometimes we also join this vision. We are a bit critical about technology. And then a very different vision is, for example, from Next Nature, which is a vision very embracing technology, like technology is our future and we should completely embrace it. So that can also start a debate. What would you think is the future of technology? And then another small book we like, it's the Cloud Seeker. So it was also an inspiration for many of our pieces, like how to observe nature and understanding better. I will start with a few pieces. So feel free to stop at any time if you have questions about our piece. So the first one is called Artificial Arcadia. Measured and adjustable landscape, and it's a piece we've been developing for the 2019 Quadriennale of Prague. So every country has to do a pavilion, and this was the pavilion for Switzerland. Maybe Mark or David, you want to continue on this one?
Yeah, we'll continue this one. So this is a huge piece. Yeah, first let's look at the video. Yeah. It's perfect.
Sorry, I showed the video first. Then.
No, yeah, let's show.
Maybe you can comment on the video, like this image of glacier covered by blanket in Switzerland. I don't know if you hear about it. We can detail it later. Yes.
Yeah, you will detail every aspect of the piece. So this is a huge place where we exhibited. So you see a lot of pavilions around also. Laura, il y avait du son sur celle-là parce qu'on n'entend pas le son.
Oui, il y a du son, mais je ne sais pas comment le partager en fait dans Zoom.
Okay, there is no sharing of sound, but it's
yeah, I cannot share the sound, but for this one it's just like mainly accompanying sound. There's no explanation, so we're gonna explain later.
Yeah. Okay. So the one aspect that we can say already in this piece, that it's a piece where you can, because it's a pavilion, you can go inside, so you can go under this blanket, and it's react to the presence of people. So it's a project about transformations of landscape and the influence, particularly the influence of people on landscape. And as you see, there is like some elements really typical from Switzerland, like this ski lift bench, or the shape of the fabric that is evocating mountains. This is the first inspiration we got for this project. Usually we see this Switzerland as a pristine landscape and a really nice place where you see only mountains and beautiful forest. And in fact, in Switzerland, it's more than on the right. So it's really an infrastructural landscape. So we have a lot of stuff hidden in the landscape. You have like this cliche about military stuff hiding inside the mountains. That is not so cliche, but it's sometimes really true. You have a lot of infrastructure to just reach the top of mountains, like telepheric. How do you say this in English?
Ski lift, yeah.
Ski
like
lift, yeah, ski lift. This cabin to go on top of mountains. And all of this stuff made this idyllic landscape not so natural anymore. So it's really a man-made landscape. And so we wanted to speak a little bit about this aspect of landscape transformed by human and our presence. Next slide.
Yes.
One other thing that was our inspiration is this really typical Switzerland element that I think you don't know it. It's called Bauprofil. It shows in English, yeah, it's David.
Yeah, you say construction profile, so it's this like sort of stick. Yeah, Mark will explain.
Just these sticks just enclose a space in the city, and it to show how a building will take place in the city. So it's to show how the building will look like, how height it will be, and so people can oppose to the construction, to the building of this house or of this.
So it's kind of a wireframe. You don't see you see this angle, so it shows just the block of the building. Let's say if it's a supermarket, and then so this little stick are present during, I don't know, 2 or 3 months, and then the neighbor can oppose or say, oh, it's too big, it will cover my view on the lake, for instance. This kind, or maybe ecological reason also, we don't want this building next to our farm, these kind of things.
Is this standard procedure for any sort of construction?
Yes, it's mandatory. You have to make this. You cannot build without this first.
It becomes almost a political device. That's
it's a political tool to. So we use this Bauprofil in the piece to enclose some space. So we created this 5 by 5 space enclosed by this 4 Bauprofil on the corner, and it was to raise the question about what's happening in these 5 by 5 meters. Like now it's become a political question because of these 4 elements. So this is one part. A second part, David told it during the video some years ago, and still now it's still there on the Rhone Alp glacier. We covered the glacier with blankets to avoid some melting of the glacier because it's becoming too hot, also in Switzerland. And we were really interested in this fact because we didn't cover all the glacier. We covered only some parts, like some parts that people can visit, so a touristic part. So this was interesting. And also the aesthetic was really interesting. This kind of blankets recreating some different shapes, so it's not nature anymore, it's not ice, it's like fabrics, and it's still white, but it's another kind of reflection, another kind of aesthetics. And so on the next slide you see that we created these shapes with one fabric to resonate with these blankets on the Alpen glacier.
Maybe I can.
You can continue a little bit about.
Continue a little bit. Another reference we had for the project was infrastructures, and there is a lot of infrastructures in the Alps. For example, these huge billboards you can see. So we got really inspired by this infrastructure. How does it happens in the landscape? Is it invasive? Is it sometimes also beautiful? It creates a new aesthetic, so we really like those infrastructure. And in our piece, we also added this big screen, which is a reference to infrastructure, but the screen also acts like a sort of window on the installation. I will quickly continue with the data and then talk more about the screen. Another inspiration for the piece was the way that it's not only happening in Switzerland, but really globally. We really want to collect data about everything. So for example, in Switzerland, there's a huge process of digitalization. For example, on the right, you can see this is a 3D scanning of the Matterhorn, the famous mountain of Switzerland, that has been done by a lot of drones. So they have the exact topography of the mountain. It's kind of a digital clone. And on the left, it's an example of a lake where we can see in real time the movement of the lake, the temperature and everything. So we've got a lot of information about the environment. And it's asked another question, like what are these data used for? And actually, we think that the combination of all this data can also make us realize the impact we have on the planet. So we think it's a good thing that we have all this information, but then we must do something with it, something useful. And in our piece, we also like to work with data. So we took a small area of the Swiss Alps. It's mainly valleys and Grison, I would say. It's the red square on the picture. So we took this and we included that in our installation. So now on the screen you can see like a zoom part in the Swiss Alps. So we call this fictional region Artificial Arcadia. So it was we completely took the topography of the Swiss Alps, but then we take randomly 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer part of the Swiss Alps, and then each point you see on the screen will give its position to the blanket. So then we recreate a landscape with this blanket, and on the screen we show exactly what happens.
So yeah, you see on the right there is a small caption, snow level. So basically, it's can I keep going, Laura? Just to
bien sûr.
Yeah. Basically, it's literally taking a 5 by 5 piece of glacier and then recreating artificially with a mechanical system of our installation. So there's a profile, a bow profile that Mark mentioned before. They are motorized at different levels. So we can recreate different icy looking landscape thanks to an artificial mechanical installation. And that's the first step. So that's how the system works. So it's loading a piece, a real piece of data, and then transforming it to a landscape. And then people, visitors of our installation, can go underneath and their presence are tracked. So here the legend is not anymore snow level, but the temperature, so the heat of the people. And of course, it's also a metaphor of the heat of the planet and global warming. So people are going underneath this infrastructural landscape, which looks like a glacier from the top, from the view from the bench that you have here on the screen. Then people go underneath, and as the more people there is, the more the glacier will melt. So it's also like showing that suddenly these motors are going down and recreating new pieces and also affecting the map on the screen. So it's quite complex. There is a lot of layers of understanding, and yes, maybe Laura can keep going about.
I want to
Mark.
For the next slide is really speaking for itself. If you put the next slide, Laura, we can. Here you really see now all the installation that you already see in the video, but here you have everything. So you have these blanket layers that is creating a shape of mountains. On the screen, you have like where this shape of mountain is coming from. And eventually, if people will go underneath, the blanket will melt and it will end flat. So the mountain will go away. And we really liked these two ways also to look at the installation. So you can go below and be really under and have an influence on the shape, or you can like go on the bench and be like a tourist and just observing the really beautiful like just mountain shape. and also you can see all the data on the screen from this side.
I have a quick question about the data acquisition. So do you guys make your own data readings and then transform the data sets, or are these data sets that have been, open source and found?
In Switzerland, we have a really long history about topography. We began to make maps and data of Swiss mountains since a long time, first by hand, first by military people, and etc., etc. And now there is a service in Switzerland that is called Swiss Topo, that is really, really at the edge of technology to analyze landscape and some stuff. And they give a lot of data for free, like open source data. For example, you can have free data of Swiss landscape. You can have 1 point of Swiss landscape each 2 meters. This is free and open source. And if you buy it, you can have each half a meter precision. So they still have you can have really precise data for research and scientific research, but you can also have open source data for different stuff, like for artistic purposes, or maybe also research, but not paid research, I don't know. So yes, so this data, we use this open source data. And we also created our own data at the end, because we keep track of every visitor who came. And so at the end, we had a new set of data with the snow melted. So we keep also our own new transformed Switzerland.
That's maybe the next slide, no? Laura?
Yeah, that will be the next slide.
That's pretty interesting.
Did you just call the people snow melters?
Sorry?
I'm sorry, I said, did you just call people, your visitors, snow melters?
No, I just say snow melted, so no snow melters. but it's funny word, snow melters.
No, but it was kind of a metaphor. Like if visitor came into our piece and they decided to stay for some time, they had an impact on the landscape. So
yeah.
And if they wanted to experience our piece, they had really no choice than making the snow melt. So, and I don't know if one of you want to explain the map, or I do. You were starting arguments. So after this experience, like the piece Artificial Arcada, was exhibited for 10 days. And so we had a lot of visitors over the 10 days. But then we wanted to have something afterwards to talk about the project, because it's really a huge piece, so hard to exhibit again. And so we decided that with all the data we had from the 10 days, because we recorded every movement in our installation and every 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer area that was impacted by the visitor. So we created this map. And it's quite small, so I will show you the next slide where it's a bit zoomed in. You can see on the image on the left that, for example, there is squares that are missing in the mountains. So you can see, for example, that there is really holes that have been created, and actually this is all the part that were affected during the 10 days. So then it creates a new landscape with all the visitors that came into our installation.
So black means no snow, and white is 4 meters ice and snow. So it's really recreating this kind of almost perfectly squared melted area. So it becomes a fictional map created out of the data from the exhibitions and from the visitors.
So it's kind of an object to talk about the project. So we were inspired by the maps we have in Switzerland. We have a lot of maps that they always look the same about every area of Switzerland. So we kind of get inspired by this object.
The impact that your installation is having as the people visit, you are showing it on the map.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's kind of a speculation of the glacier melting.
Yeah, all right, very interesting.
And then on the next slide, as a kind of a new idea. We wanted to do the piece on the right, but we haven't done it yet. But this was an idea to kind of take one of those holes that have been really created on the map and to do it for real somewhere. So maybe it's not going to be possible to do 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer, but just like removing the snow somewhere, like as an artistic gesture, like okay, the impact
and still
of people.
using this political device to raise a question about this
happening. It's kind of a performance where we will go with how do you call it, shell? No. Comment on dit?
Tu cherches quoi?
Des pelles, tu dis?
Shovel.
Yeah, shovel, exactly. With a shovel and create the perfect 5 by 5 holes till the earth and the grass. And also question, you know, how far should we go with not doing anything about climate change, basically. And again, we have this political stick that kind of ask everyone the question in a democratic way, you know. So it's a non-realized project, but that we still wish to do. Yes.
Yeah.
Do you have a question about this piece, or should we go to the next one?
I have one question about this piece. Where does all the snow that you take out from the square go?
That's a good question.
On the side, I guess.
Yeah,
here
probably.
The image we don't see. I think we just put it on the side. Maybe just doing a, I don't know, and then put it back.
We make it melt. I don't know.
Only we make a cocktail and we serve like melted water to people.
Melted water, yeah. Basically, give back to the people what they have created.
Yeah, why not? And we already explained a lot with those construction profiles, but we liked this political object because we think we like to think of our piece as spaces for discussion. Like it's always raising question about some topics that we like, and then we also like the fact that then we can discuss those topics with the people. So the next piece we're gonna present is also based on the same principle of having like a space to open up a discussion. So the next piece is called Displavion. It was made also in 2019. First, the inspiration was from our region. So this is the Lavaux. This is like where we are from in Switzerland. So it's a really nice region with vineyards. Vineyard, yes. But that most people don't know is that to keep the wines growing and to avoid hail, there's a lot of people playing a magician and shooting rockets in the clouds to avoid hail. So they actually shoot really small rockets to break actually the hail in the clouds, so it doesn't fall on the grapes. And this leads us to a topic that we want to discuss with this next piece, is the topic of geoengineering and especially cloud seeding. So I don't know if you already heard about cloud seeding, but it's actually this technique of sending chemicals in the clouds to either stop the rain or provoke it. So it's a technology that has been developed since I think the 60s. Correct me if I'm wrong, David, but I think it was the 60s.
Since the 40s even.
40s.
Even the Vietnam War, and the first cloud seeding used was for sadly was for military purpose, but then it's also, as we will see with Laura, it's been used for economical reason or for political reason. So yes.
So I will first show you the video. Sadly, I cannot have the sound, so I will just try to explain for every part of the video a bit what this is about. But the video shows a bit the inspiration we used for the piece. So we selected 11 events about rain that went wrong. So either they did it for political reason, or they did it because they wanted how do you say,
more water for the
yeah, more water for the plants, or like a lot of different reasons. Okay, let's go. So
brief rainfall episodes of varying in.
So the first event is from London. So we mix actually in our piece a natural rain event with artificial ones. So we created a pool where you can see rain, and it's actually goes from natural rain to artificial rain. So we recreated the rain pattern, and when it's a natural rain, then it actually look like it's natural. But then when the piece talks about an artificial rain, then it starts to make a geometrical pattern or something that looks a bit odd and not natural anymore.
I think the best is to see the video on our website, because here it's a bit lagging because of Zoom. But go to our website, you can watch it. And,
maybe if it's lagging, maybe I just keep on with the presentation, and then you will. Yeah, there is some other small loops, so you will see. I just go to the next slide. So that's we made two versions of the piece. So we made one that is oval and made with Cortem steel, the border, and it allows to do a certain kind of patterns. And then we make also another one that is a bit smaller, round, and made with alpine stone. We exhibited these at different places. And also the installation comes with two screens, as you have seen briefly on the video, that shows the geoengineering event that I've been talking about. So I don't know if it's lagging, if you can see the video, but here it shows like...
Yeah, we can see it.
Yeah, it shows like a different type of rain. So it's first a natural one, and then it's one that is engineered. So it's kind of reinterpretation of those rains, even how they would have looked like. Can you tell the difference between a natural rain and a rain that has been geo-engineered? Here you can see a bit the screen. So each time it's just zoom in and zoom out from places on Earth, and then on the left you can have the explanation about. So it's research that we've done. So we made the information as we found them, but it's always a text describing what happened there and why it was caused and how it went wrong, etc. So it's like giving you a few insights about geoengineering events.
For the next slide, I can just explain you one of these events. If you put like this one, this one is rain that is falling by 2 drops at the same times, but the pattern is random, but it's always 2 drops at the same. And this was to explain, for example, a rain event that happened in Ouagadougou, because there is a lot of cotton fields, and cotton fields need a lot of water. And so they made so much cotton fields that at some point there was no water anymore. So they tried to make rain over this cotton field. So they used these rockets to provoke rain. And in fact, the effect was it worked so much that it was drowning all the fields, and it destroyed all the cotton fields because there was too much water and the ground was too dry. And so because it was too dry, the water stayed, and so it was like a flood. And so to represent this, we choose to create this rain that falls by 2, so to say, okay, it's falling too much rain, so it's... And so we try to create some kind of contemplative part in the pool, where you have like a strange rain, and data part on the screen, as in artificial Arcadia, because we like to have a part of the piece that is contemplative and another one that is more to explain to people on the screen.
The next image, Marc, tu veux continuer?
Ouais, ok. The next image is where the name is coming from and why we choose also to call it like this. This is a Roman Atrium, Romanian Atrium, and it was the first room you found in Roman house, where the rich family welcomed the people to come to their house. Normally they couldn't go elsewhere. It was a public part of the house, and it's called an atrium. And in the middle of this atrium you have this pool, and normally on the roof you have a hole called a Displavion, and this hole allow rain to fall inside this pool. So we found interesting to call it like this because, yeah, first it's a pool where rain is falling, but also it was the space where people came to discuss and to meet. So again, like with the Bauprofil, it's again a place where we try to gather people around to discuss a topic about rain for this piece. So it's again a political space discussion.
This is a exhibition view, but it also kind of looks like the Roman atrium. So I'd like to put both next to another. So do you have any question about this piece, or should we continue?
Maybe for this one also to mention what was our artistic position regarding cloud seeding. Maybe that's also interesting. Of course, we don't say it's bad or it's good, but what we wanted to reveal is also cloud seeding in itself is not really bad for the environment in terms of the chemical. It doesn't really affect the flora or from the research we have done, it's a too small amount to really have let's say a bad impact on nature. But what is bad is the snowball effect. I give you an example. The example Mark mentioned is like, okay, we want to solve a problem with technology, but at the end, it creates a new problem which is even worse. So a flood, for instance, because the soil was super dry and then suddenly it started raining a lot and then it destroyed the cotton fields. There is a lot of these events, for instance, in China. They wanted to lower the pollution of Beijing because when it's raining, it's also lowering the PM, the fine particle of pollution in the city. So they wanted to do this in Beijing. And instead of raining, it started to snow and the full city was paralyzing because of the snow in Beijing in 2008. So that's one of the events. So what we want also to show is this fail and also the side effect of using such technology and what the side effect is having on the general ecosystem. Yes.
And I can add one more volunteer that is quite frightening about those technologies, also how they can be used, because they've been used for a purpose such as avoiding rain on military parades. So I mean, that's not really harmful. It's like, oh, they want a sunny day for the parade. So, okay, that's it. That can be considered okay. That was done by the Russian. But then some countries now, we know that they want to kind of prevent the rain, the clouds to go further than the border. So they can keep the water in their country. So they can have this cloud seeding infrastructure at the border. And so they can make the rain kind of fall in their country instead of going to the neighboring country. So kind of stealing the water even before it's falling into the ground. So kind of the same that has been done with like taking the water from the river upstream and prevent it from going further. But this is something also that could be done with those technologies. So.
Is this technology really available, or people like citizen scientists are building by themselves these rockets? How are they getting their hands on these?
I think it's quite legally structured, and it depends really on the country. Even in the United States, they have different law for different states. So some states can use it really like, of course, it's quite a lot of cost. They use it in Colorado to create more snow for the ski resort, for instance. So it becomes also really an economical tool, let's say. but I think, of course, I don't think people can just do it like this because it's expensive, and of course there is regulation of the amount they can send in the air, etc. But there are things that we don't know. You know, if it's military purpose, it's always a bit dark. So I don't know.
And you mentioned about these events that where the cloud seeding was used for other purposes that were like for military purposes. So those events were like these researchers, how they were accumulated, like they were just working as a backend for your project, or they were also a visual space for those readings?
You mean how did we do the research, or?
No, how those events like the you mentioned about the military use of cloud seeding, and then this pond space that you have where the ripples, like as a viewer when we are entering in the space, we get to know about it just by looking at the ripples that are forming on the layer, because it was not very visible in the video.
Yeah, sorry, it's I explained briefly, but it's we have the two screens on top of the installation, and on those screens we so one by one it's switched from one event to another. So I think every 2 minutes it's another event that is mentioned, and then on the screen it's displayed the information about what happened. So
it's synchronizing. It's synchronizing the pool and the information on the screen. And yes, and it's a loop of 15 minutes and maybe 12 events and 12 different patterns on the Atrium.
And usually at first people walks in and they really see the pool first, because it's really contemplative, and it's really also calming to look at those patterns. And then at some point, if you want to know more, you can go and look at the screens, and then you will kind of understand what this piece is about, and the research we've been doing for making this piece happen.
Very interesting.
How much time do we have? Because I'm not sure we have time for.
So I think 4:45 we have some questions and we'll ask you those questions. But we can continue till then, yeah. And
so sorry, because we don't have the same time here. So
sorry. I'm so sorry.
Immediately. Okay, so
around 15 minutes.
We have 20 minutes.
Okay, great. Okay, so I go to the next project.
Yeah, we can just see the just a glimpse of the technical part without water of the Displavion, like it's the grids that permit us to create this rain. So just to show under the water, this is a trick to create the rain.
It coming from down and not from up.
Small pumps, just creating a small flow and creating the drop. But yeah, just a glimpse.
A bit behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Yeah. The next image, it's also, I can talk about it briefly, but it's it looks like it's fake, but it's an actual cloud that it's called a lenticular cloud. So it's kind of like, we like to put this image after the explanation of Displavion, because it's a bit like we want to control nature, but sometimes it's just like perfectly controlled by itself, and it does stuff that we thought would be completely artificial, but it's not. Okay, I go to the next project. Your phone needs to cool down. David, tu voulais parler?
Yes, now we will. So the two previous projects are showing how technology can impact nature, and on this next project, we're looking at how nature or climate change can affect technology. So it's a bit. We always look at climate change from a human perspective, or sometimes from a plant or animal perspective, but most of the time it's from our human perspective. And here we are thinking how an iPhone will fare global warming in 20 years. So I don't know if you probably all have one day an iPhone and you go to the beach, or in India it's pretty hot and humid in some of your region. And then you leave your phone on the beach, and suddenly you have this bug occurring. Temperature, iPhone needs to cool down before you can use it. I don't know if you had this issue once, but then you have to put your phone elsewhere, and then maybe 10 minutes it's cooling down, and then you can again use the screen. So we were very, very interested by this bug, because in most of Middle East country in 20 years or even in 10 years, and the bug is occurring at 45 degrees. So in most of Middle East country in 10 years, in summer, it will be the normal temperature in the middle of the day. So most of our technological device will not work. So it's a bit an absurd way. So maybe next slide. So what we create, it's an installation where looking like a terrarium. So a terrarium is a place where you put iguanas, for instance, or such a reptile, yes. And it's an artificial climate that you create for the animals, right? It's people that keep animals at their place, and they recreate this kind of tropical climate that, for instance, in Switzerland, we don't have. So we have to recreate it artificially. So here there is an iPhone or a phone in our case, suspended in the middle of this terrarium. And we have these two artificial lights. The one is the purple one is mimicking a tropical night of 20 degrees, a full moon tropical night. And the other one is heating at 55 degrees. So we kind of recreating the bug artificially of the iPhone needs to cool down before you can use it. So it's a cycle. Maybe a next slide, Laura.
Mm-hmm.
This is the detail. Maybe we can talk about it later. But it was like, yeah, it's some details about how could a phone how to say survive in this overheating climate. So they have this kind of phone protection that you can buy online for protecting your phone from cold or from hot temperatures. It becomes really almost like a gadget. And if you go back to the previous slide, Laura, you see that there is another phone and with these two covers at the bottom of the glass box. Maybe you can see some details later. Yeah, here it's a bit better to explain. So there is these two different cycles. So one is heating up to 55 degrees, so very warm with this red light. And when it reaches 45 degrees, the phone recreating the bug. So here it's written, your phone is overheating, close the current application to help your phone cooling down. So this, we managed to really hack the phone and to recreate that bug. And then when it reaches on the bottom right, you see that there is the global temperature of the environment. So we have a temperature sensor. And when it reaches 45 or 48 degrees, I think it's switching down to the other light. So it's cooling down. So it's an infinite loop of heating up the phone, then it bugs, and then cooling down. And then when it reaches again 25 degrees, so the general temperature of the room, then it starts to warm up again with the red light. So it's kind of this absurd loop. And what is the phone doing during that moment? The phone, when it's not too hot, it's stopped working. And when it's not too hot, it's looking online for his own survival. So he's looking of how, as a phone, I can start to low down my temperature. So it's like different videos, and maybe you can see the video, Laura, so we can understand. Next slide. So this is an installation in Vienna, and this is the video.
Yeah. Sorry, I cannot put the sound again, but you can see. Nice. Yeah, I don't know how to put the sound in Zoom. So
maybe if you take from your speaker, we'll be able to hear it.
Yes. So,
yeah, but we also.
It works now.
Can you hear something?
Yes. So now it's warming. And now it switched to the other one.
So, outside of the ocean, yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you?
Watching a YouTube video, the phone, is it like searching for information while it's heating up, you're saying?
So, Laura, should we send the link to the video, to our website in the chat? I think that's better.
All right.
Yes, we can.
So,
Can you do it?
Your question, Dia?
So I was asking that how does it search for information, the phone, to survive?
Currently it's a video pre-recorded, but in the future we want to just more create like a small algorithm that is looking for different tags, or currently it's pre-recorded video, yes, because it was, with the time we had, it was more, let's say, simple to do it like this, but we have the skills to do it differently, more dynamically. That would be also interesting to do, but yes. And the video is, for instance, looking to buy online this cover, you know, or is looking for, there is like video of comment elle s'appelle? The climate activist, Greta Thunberg, yes. So he's looking for a video of Greta and this kind of things.
All right, great.
So the visitors can sometimes look and see what happens on the screen, and sometimes you see that it's just bug, and yes.
Right.
It's almost as if you're treating the phone as an organism by itself. Like, you know, exposing it to like different cycles of heating and cooling. It has a consciousness of itself where he's looking for answers, trying to comprehend what's going on. And it's also got its little own like spacesuit going on. That's really cool.
That spacesuit is so cool.
But at the same time, it's very absurd, but at the same time, phone has become so important for us that is really a metaphor of us being overheat, and then you know.
Yes.
Like that's the kind of tell of the age we're living in, right? Like we're sort of blurring the boundaries between like what is virtual, what is real. We're so embedded in these things right now. Like I've been seeing a lot of videos of everything being cake on the internet at the moment. There's absurd things going on, or our soundscapes are modified by technology. Now we can't differentiate between synthetic sounds and real sounds as well. So I think this sort of narrative is sort of embedded in our lives already. We just haven't been, you know, taking the time out to shift our perspective on it.
Sure. At first, for this piece, we also wanted people to put their own smartphone in the installation. But then in the end, we decided to do it with the smartphone that we actually use now. But the first idea was that people had to put their own device in the installation and then kind of watch it suffer. And like, what does that? Is it painful?
Taking phones from people is so difficult. Just that would be quite a challenge. Can you give us your phone as part of the experiment?
It's better because when we tried this installation, we broke the phone of Laura a little bit, and now the phone that is the iPhone is like the screen was burned. And this phone that is still inside the installation, when it's working now, it's blinking all the time because it's becoming to be broken completely. So it's better to not use the phone. Of course.
So guys, we are like almost like we're pretty much at the end, and we have a few questions if you want to answer. Farah, Ritika, do you have questions?